I was on a long-haul drive a few weeks ago, just dropped off a load in Texas. Instead of taking the usual roads, I thought I'd save some time by heading down a back road. It was a decision I would soon regret. The night was quiet, just me and my truck on this desolate highway, and I felt the weight of that stillness. As I drove, a flicker caught my eye in the rearview mirror. It looked like a headlight, but mine were fine. I thought maybe it was my imagination. I'd been on the road for hours, and I could feel the exhaustion creeping in. I'd been listening to the same audiobook for too long. All I wanted was my bed. Around midnight, I decided to pull over. I needed a stretch. The flickering light hadn't faded, it seemed to call to me. I stepped out of my truck and felt a strange unease wash over me. The air felt thick, like I was being watched. Nothing but crickets and the low rumble of the Texas night filled the silence, but something about the night just felt off. When I turned back to my cab, the light was gone. Then I heard music. It was faint at first, but it grew louder. I turned around and saw an old, abandoned truck on the side of the road. Its engine was warm, but there wasn't a soul in sight. The music, an eerie old tune, sent shivers down my spine. I felt a rush of adrenaline and thought about checking it out, but I hesitated. Something was holding me back. I stepped back and felt the earth shift under my feet. After a few moments of indecision that felt like hours, I climbed back into my truck. I thought I was losing it, and I turned my GPS on, desperate for some guidance. But instead of directions, it flashed a message: turn back. I blinked hard, assuming it was just malfunctioning. But there it was again. Turn back. Panic started rising in my throat. As I sat there, my attention was drawn back to the trees. I could have sworn I saw a figure standing there, just watching me. But when I looked again, it vanished. I struggled to calm myself, thinking maybe I was just too tired. Suddenly, the light flickered back in my mirror, closer this time. My heart raced. I didn't know what to do. I looked around, trying to find something logical in this madness. When the figure reappeared, even closer. "Do you need help?" I asked, my voice shaky. No reply. Just a cold, unblinking stare. It felt like they were looking right through me. I finally made a break for it. I whipped my truck around and drove off, wanting to get as far away as I could. I didn't dare look back at that haunted stretch of road. But even after I left, I felt it's something dark lurking in the night, just out of sight. And every time I drive past that route now, I can't shake the feeling that something is still watching me, waiting for me to return. The next day, I tried to shake off what had happened. I had a delivery to make in a neighboring town, a route I was familiar with. I promised myself I wouldn't dwell on that night. I made my way down the highway, gripping the steering wheel tightly, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. As I drove, I kept glancing at the roadside, half expecting to see that old truck or the silhouette by the trees. Nothing. Just endless stretches of asphalt and fields bathed in morning light. I wanted to believe it was just a mixture of exhaustion and paranoia, but my heart didn't agree. Every mile felt heavier, as if the weight of that night was pressing down on me. I stopped for coffee at a truck stop to clear my head. Standing at the counter, I overheard a couple of truckers talk about the same back road I had taken. They mentioned strange occurrences, flickering lights, and figures in the trees. My stomach twisted. I wanted to leave, but I felt sort of drawn into their conversation. "Ever seen that old truck?" one of them asked, his voice low. I thought about how it had looked weathered and rusting, but the engine still warm. I couldn't help but feel a chill run through me. "Yeah, I came across it last night," I said cautiously, the words slipping out before I could stop myself. The other trucker looked at me sharply. "You were down that way? You must have heard the music then." I frowned. "Music?" He nodded, almost knowingly. You should stay away from there. Folks say it's haunted. Anyone who hears the song is marked. Marked? The thought filled me with dread. I tried to laugh it off, but the weight of his words hung in the air. What do you mean marked? He shrugged. Bad things tend to happen if you don't turn back. Those who ignore the warnings. He trailed off and shook his head. I didn't push him, I felt my voice catch in my throat. I paid for my coffee, feeling lightheaded. As I walked back to my truck, my heart was racing. What if they were right? What if I was being watched? I climbed into my cab and took a deep breath, but that sense of dread was still there. Turning the key, I tried to focus on the day ahead. Just as I pulled onto the highway, my GPS flashed alive again. Turn back, it blared. My pulse quickened, and I had to fight the urge to slam on the brakes. The truck had no reason to malfunction like that. I was already on edge, and this pushed me closer to a breaking point. I ignored the GPS this time, convincing myself that I didn't believe in such nonsense. But as I drove, a familiar flickering caught my eye in the mirror. It was far down the road, but that light had returned. My hands tightened around the wheel, and I had to fight the urge to look back. Something was out there. Then everything went dark. My headlights dimmed to nothing, and so did the sun, leaving me engulfed in night. Panic bubbled in my chest as I tried to restart the truck. No response. Just the sound of silence pressing in around me. And in that silence, I heard it, the haunting melody drifting along the wind. I couldn't move. The melody wove around me, sinister and enchanting, as if trying to pull me into its depths. My instinct screamed at me to get out, but the engine wouldn't start. I was trapped, sitting in this dead silence that felt alive with something I couldn't see. Shivering, I remembered the trucker's warnings. Turn back. I felt a lump in my throat. Had I ignored the signs for too long? I glanced out the window. Was that movement in the trees? I strained to see, but there was only darkness beyond my windshield. The music grew louder, wrapping around my heart. It sounded like a distant lullaby, sweet yet chilling, soft whispers woven into the notes. I gripped the steering wheel, sweat beading on my forehead. This isn't happening, I muttered to myself. It's just a trick. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. With trembling fingers, I jiggled the key in the ignition again. Still nothing. My breath quickened. I could hear the rustling of leaves, closer now. That was when I saw it, a flicker of motion, illuminated by starlight. Glancing in my mirrors, I found nothing, but the feeling of being watched intensified. I turned my attention back to the front, desperate and frantic. The music warped into something more sinister, pulling at my thoughts. I had to break free. I unbuckled my seatbelt and shoved the door open. The night air hit me like ice. My senses sharpened as I stepped onto the pavement, but the darkness loomed thick and suffocating. Hello? I called out, my voice echoing strangely against the silence. No response. There was only that melody, haunting and sweet. Across the road, a flicker caught my eye. Something shone beneath the trees. A dim light pulsed rhythmically, almost beckoning. I hesitated, heart racing, weighing the danger of venturing closer. The pull was strong, but the consequences were unclear, and fear gripped my gut. With every step toward the light, I could feel a shift in the atmosphere. The air was charged, crackling with energy. I stopped short just before the tree line, peering into the shadows. That's when I noticed something in the dirt, a small, rusted object. It was part of an old keychain plaque, and inscribed on it was a name I recognized. My breath hitched. It was a name linked to that back road, a name I had heard in whispered conversations before they'd become tainted with warnings. Bile rose in my throat, and I fought against the urge to run, but my feet felt frozen in place. Suddenly, the music stopped. Silence followed, heavy and expectant. I turned on my heels, ready to flee back to my cab, when I heard footsteps crunching on the gravel behind me. Someone or something was coming closer. Panic surged as I spun around, and that's when I saw it. A figure, dark and blurred, stepping out of the shadows. The silent night crackled with tension as I finally faced whatever had been watching me. My heart raced. There was no turning back now. The figure stood still, cloaked in darkness. My stomach twisted as I tried to make out its features. Was it human? The shadows danced around it, obscuring any details. Then, it moved a slow, deliberate step forward. I could hardly breathe. "Who are you?" My voice trembled, barely escaping my lips. The only response was the silence that followed. I felt exposed, standing there under the heavy gaze of the unknown. Just then, the dim light pulsed brighter near the trees. The figure turned its head slightly, almost as if it was distracted for a moment. This was my chance. But instead of running back to my cab, some intangible force pulled me toward it. As I stepped closer, the light revealed a broken path lined with jagged rocks. I could see a figure etched faintly against the trees. It looked like a woman, her hair wild and tangled, almost blending into the underbrush. My heart raced again, fueled by a surge of courage laced with dread. "What do you want?" I shouted, louder this time, trying to muster any authority I could. But as the figure continued to advance, I noticed something on her wrist. A matching keychain, glinting like the one I'd found on the ground. My pulse quickened even more. In that brief moment, she stopped. Her eyes locked onto mine, void of any recognition. They looked lost, as if they were searching for something they couldn't grasp. A low, soft sound escaped her lips. It wasn't words, it was more like a mournful melody, reminiscent of what had drawn me here in the first place. That's when I remembered the Lord's crowd. Someone was supposed to have gone missing up this road years ago, along with others. And this woman, could she be one of them? Panic surged again, clouding my thoughts. I had to get away. I turned to sprint back to my truck, but just as I did, a shrill scream sliced through the air, echoing against the trees. It came from deeper in the darkened woods. The scream felt familiar, almost haunting. Anger surged through me. Who would dare invade this peaceful night with such horror? I hesitated, torn between the voices clamoring in my head. Part of me screamed to run back to the safety of my cab, and the other part pulled me into the darkness, where answers lay shrouded in mystery. I took a deep breath and plunged toward the sound. Each step felt like a countdown, the afternoon forest whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Without knowing why, I felt the weight of every missing person pressing on my shoulders. Just before I reached the tree line, the ground bucked beneath me. My foot twisted painfully, throwing me off balance as I stumbled. My hand grazed something cool and metallic. I glanced down. It was another keychain, this one engraved with a date. What had happened here? Suddenly, the darkness thickened, and the air chilled around me. The faint light flickered and then went out. I looked left and right, panic rising in my throat as a shadow loomed, larger than before. My heart raced again. Had I stepped into a trap? Then, it spoke. "Help us." The voice was raspy, breaking through the silence. I froze, feeling more eyes on me than in the woods. Who was asking for help? And from whom? I stood frozen in place, the chilling voice echoing in my mind, "Help us." The shadow shifted, inching closer, and I could feel an oppressive weight start to fill the air around me. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Who were us? Who needs help? I managed to utter, my voice trembling. The dark figure remained silent, but the space felt alive with energy, crackling like a storm waiting to break. Then, before I could even register what was happening, I heard the screech of branches snapping and rustling in the underbrush. A pair of eyes suddenly emerged from the shadows, glimmering in the dim light. I jumped back, heart racing. Another figure stepped forward, this one more solid than the first. It was a man, and as he moved closer, I could see the desperation etched on his face. His clothes were torn, and dirt smeared across his cheeks, as if he had fought to escape something terrifying. "There's no time," he gasped, looking over his shoulder nervously. "Help me find them, they're still out there." His voice was frantic, and it sent a new jolt of fear through me. I wanted to run, but I felt anchored to the spot. Who's out there?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "The others," he replied, his breath quickening. "We all found each other here on the road. We need to go back before." Suddenly, there was another shriek, sharper this time, slicing through the night. I felt a twist in my stomach. Was it one of them? Was I about to find out what was lurking in the dark? That's one of them now. The man pointed deeper into the woods. I caught a glimpse of movement, shadowy figures flitting in and out of the darkness. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but again I felt that maddening pull toward the unknown. "Wait. Listen," I called. "What happened to you? How can I help?" He stopped and stared at me, his expression shifting. "You don't know?" Confusion flickered in those haunted eyes. "They take you. They keep you here until you forget. Until you can't leave." My pulse thundered in my ears. I thought of the keychains I had found, the lost names, the dates etched in metal. What if all these missing pieces led to something real and dangerous? Then how do I help? I pressed, desperate to understand, fighting against the overwhelming urge to bolt. He hesitated, glancing back at the darkening tree line. "Find the heart of the forest. That's where they go. Follow the light, don't let it fade. But you need to be quick." The terror in his voice was palpable. The shadowy figures were drawing closer, their whispers rising into a cacophony. I could feel my heart pounding, the urge to escape nearly overpowering. But, in the depths of my fear, a part of me wanted the truth, wanted to understand what had truly happened here. "Come with me," I shouted, reaching out to him, but the man stepped back into the shadows, retreating with fear. "I can't. You'll get trapped like us." Before I could ask anything more, he dashed deeper into the dark, becoming just another wisp of shadow. Now, I was left standing at the edge of the woods. The air felt thicker, and an unsettling sense of urgency filled me. I knew I couldn't turn back. I had to find the light he mentioned. I took a breath and stepped forward, unsure of what awaited me. But there, further in, was a flickering glow. It pulsed brightly, beckoning me deeper into the unknown. As I moved toward it, the unsettling feeling of being watched returned. Then everything went dark. I stumbled forward, my hands outstretched, searching for anything to guide me. The darkness felt thick, like a heavy fog moving in to swallow me whole. I called out, but my voice was swallowed by the silence. Was this the same forest I had entered just moments ago? Then, like a fire igniting, the glow reappeared, stronger this time. I squinted, focusing on it. It flickered between the trees, a beacon that danced like a flame, inviting yet foreboding. I had to get to it. With each step, the ground crunched softly beneath my feet. The air changed. It grew colder, almost biting. I shivered, drawing in a quick breath. I couldn't shake the feeling that something watched me from the shadows, hidden yet eager. The glow grew brighter, and I finally pushed through a thicket of branches. I stumbled into a clearing, and there it was, a small circle of light emanating from an eerie crystal that hovered in the air. It pulsed with a rhythm, syncopating with my heartbeat. I stared, entranced but terrified at the same time. "Is anyone there?" I whispered into the void, hoping to break the tension. There was no response but the crackling of the light. I took another step closer, drawn in by its magnetic force. Suddenly, whispers swirled around me, indistinct murmurs weaving through the air. Panic surged as I caught glimpses of shadowy figures forming at the edge of the clearing, their shapes shifting and swirling. I backed away instinctively, my heart racing. "Help us!" The voice was low, melding with the rustling leaves. It was the same voice from earlier, laced with desperation. As the shadows grew bolder, I recognized the faces. They looked like the man-haunted and brittle, eyes wide with despair. "Please," another voice joined in. "You have to help us break free." I felt the weight of their plea wash over me, yet fear gripped my throat. What did they want? How could I help? I brushed my fingers along the crystal, instinctively searching for a way to understand or to set things right. Then I noticed a faint inscription on the crystal, nearly hidden by the light. I leaned in, squinting to read the engraved words. "Find the lost and bring them back." Before I could absorb its meaning, the ground trembled, and the shadows lunged toward me. "Don't touch it!" One of the figures screamed, lunging forward, but the light flickered wildly, and I felt my body freeze as if trapped in a vice. In that moment, I realized I had stumbled into something far beyond my understanding. An old, twisted game played by forces I couldn't see. My heart pounded in my chest, but I was paralyzed, caught between the dark and the light. And then it happened. The crystal shattered into 1,000 shards of glowing light, sending all the shadows spiraling into chaos. For just a moment, everything was brilliant, then darkness fell once more, a heavy, suffocating blanket cutting me off from my previous understanding of reality. As the light faded, I was left with a single thought, piercing through the darkness: I had to find a way to free them before it was too late. But how? That was when I heard a soft voice, whispering from the dark. "You took too long." The fear returned, sharper than before. I wasn't alone, not anymore. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm my racing heart as the voice echoed around me. The shadows were still swirling, lurking just out of my direct line of sight. Whoever or whatever was whispering was close, too close. "Who are you?" I called, my voice trembling. The darkness felt alive, pressing in on me, and I could sense something in it, something watching. My instincts screamed at me to run, but where would I go? The forest was a maze, and I had lost my way. "Help us," the voice spoke again, clearer this time. "You must understand. We were trapped long before you arrived." I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stay. "Trapped how?" I demanded. "What do you want from me?" The shadows shifted, and I felt a cold breeze sweep past me. "We are lost souls. Bound to this place. Only you can help." My mind raced. What did that even mean? The crystal had shattered, and I had felt that pulse of energy. Did it mean something? I had to make sense of it all. If I was going to help them, I needed to know what I was dealing with. Suddenly, I noticed a small piece of the crystal shimmer on the ground, casting a faint glow. I bent down to pick it up, and the moment I touched it, visions flooded my mind. I saw glimpses of the figures, people who had once walked this forest, laughing and playing. Then, just as quickly, I saw them being swallowed by darkness, a malevolent force bending their wills. I gasped and dropped the shard, shaking my head. No, I couldn't become a part of that. "Please," one of them cried, pulling me back from the edge of panic with desperation in their voice. "You must find the key." "The key?" I echoed. "What key?" "Before the dawn, find the hidden passage. Only then can you break the spell." My pulse slammed in my ears. "Where do I find this passage?" "Follow the light of the moon," the voice whispered, fading into the shadows. I opened my mouth to ask another question, but nothing came out as I felt the ground shake again. It was different this time, more urgent, and the whispers became frantic. Panic surged anew. I grabbed the shard again, maybe it was part of the answer. I didn't have all the time in the world. My breath quickened, and without thinking, I dashed toward the edge of the clearing where I had first stepped through the foliage. I could feel the darkness wanting to pull me back, grabbing at my arms. The air thickened as shadows lunged, barely missing my ankles. I sidestepped, sprinting into the trees. I had to find the passage, however hidden it was. Then, just as I reached a small rise, I stumbled on something hard and cold, sending me sprawling into the damp earth. I turned around to see what I had tripped over. The ground had opened slightly, revealing a gaping hole that seemed to breathe. I stared down, my heart pounding in my chest. This must be it, but before I could delve further, a heavy hand clasped my shoulder, pulling me back. I twisted my head, and my stomach dropped. "Where do you think you're going?" A shadow loomed over me, a face forming in the dark. Fear wrapped around me again like a vice. "You need to go back." I couldn't move. The grip on my shoulder felt like ice. I twisted in panic, trying to break free, but the pressure only intensified. The shadow loomed closer, its breath hot against my ear. "You don't understand. It's not safe here," it warned, voice gravelly and urgent. Somehow, I found my voice. "Let me go," I shouted, my pulse pounding like a drum. I succeeded in breaking free, scrambling backward. Adrenaline surged through me, propelling me away from the figure that seemed to melt back into the darkness. "What do you mean it's not safe?" I stammered, glancing around. My heart raced as I scanned for a way out. There were still murmurs in the shadows, echoing the words from moments before. I had felt fate tugging at me, but now it felt like a cruel joke. "You shouldn't be here. The symbols have been disturbed. They will come for you," the figure said, eyes glinting like shards of glass. Its tone shifted, becoming almost pleading. "I'm trying to help. We all want to be free." "Help? What do you get out of it?" I shot back, feeling the weight of suspicion settle in my gut. "Freedom," it replied, voice breaking. "Just like you." The shadows thickened, shifting ominously. With every passing moment, I felt the sense of dread swell. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind. They were waiting. I could sense it. "Get out of here while you can." The figure shouted again, breaking through the chaos surrounding me. Before I could react, the woods shook violently, rattling the branches overhead. A deep rumble reverberated through my bones. Something was getting closer, and whatever it was, it didn't sound friendly. Suddenly, another figure emerged from the darkness, a fleeting wisp of pale light. It darted around us in quick bursts, almost playfully before fading back into the shadows. I couldn't help but feel it was trying to guide me, lead me somewhere. "Follow it," I yelled, already moving toward the flickering light. The original figure hesitated before shoving me again, urgency etched on its face. "You're playing a dangerous game. Don't trust them." But I didn't have time to consider the warning. The shadows were closing in. I sprinted toward the light, my feet pounding against the earth, spinning around trees and underbrush. It beckoned me further into the unknown. Finally, the light took form, shimmering symbols carved into the ground, glowing with an eerie luminescence. I skidded to a halt, heart hammering in my chest. I scanned the area, searching for a sign, something to indicate what I was supposed to do next. My breath caught as I noticed one of the symbols pulsating in rhythm with the shard I still clutched. "What does this mean?" I whispered, kneeling down to inspect it. Then I heard the rustling again, a deeper growl, as if rising from the very ground. My heartbeat quickened, and dread settled heavy in my stomach. There was no turning back now. I had come too far. When I saw it, a silhouette creeping toward me from the shadows, a creature with hollow, glowing eyes. It was too late, and I knew I had to make a choice, stand my ground or flee into the darkness. The creature lunged, and everything went black. I awoke gasping, the air thick and heavy. I was sprawled on the ground, the cool earth rough against my skin. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs. Instinct told me to get up, to run, but I struggled to focus. The darkness around me pulsed, alive with the sounds of whispers. As my senses cleared, I realized I wasn't alone. Shapes hovered in the periphery, flickering just beyond my sight. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline coursing through me again. I had to move. But where? The glowing symbols still shimmered behind me, and despite the fear washing over me, I felt drawn back to them. They seemed to promise something, answers, maybe? I hesitated, caught between the light of the symbols and the void that pressed around me. Stay away from the symbols. A voice called out, cutting through the murmur of the shadows. I turned to see the figure that had warned me before, emerging into the dim light. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Then explain. I shouted, frustration bubbling within me. The creature's hollow eyes were full of urgency. What are those things, and what do they want? They awaken things best left alone. They're ancient. The figure stepped closer, desperation apparent. Every time someone taps into them, they're disturbed. You're a beacon now. They can sense that. Disturbed? How? I pressed, my breath still uneven from the panic. They thrive on fear and chaos, it explained, glancing at the swirling shadows, its voice dropping to a whisper. And now they're coming for you, drawn by that shard. It's a link. The weight of its words settled on my shoulders. I felt my stomach twist. Whatever this shard was, I had to get rid of it. It had put me in danger. Suddenly, one of the shadows broke free from the surrounding darkness, lunging toward me with feral speed. Instinct kicked in. I ducked to the side, adrenaline dousing the initial shock. Run! I shouted, turning away from the symbols. The figure hesitated, torn between the urge to help and its own fear. No! You have to break the link. It yelled, panic swelling in its voice. But I didn't have time to think. I sprinted, dodging branches and debris, the growls of the creature echoing behind me. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against my back, hungry and relentless. The creature lunged again, its hollow eyes glaring through the shadows. I dared a glance over my shoulder. It was getting closer. As I rounded a tree, I stumbled upon an opening, a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. I veered onto it, gasping for breath, but the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of cacophony and dread. What was waiting for me down this path? Then I heard a voice, soft yet clear, one I hadn't heard before. You must choose, it said, echoing amidst the chaos. The shard or your freedom. I skidded to a halt. I had no idea what that meant, but I had no time to think. The creature was almost upon me, and I felt its monstrous breath on my neck. I had to make a choice, but which path led to freedom? And just like that, the weight of uncertainty bore down on me. I stumbled forward, heart racing, the shadow of the creature behind me barely distinguishable in the gloom. The voices surrounding me twisted and tangled, growing in volume, drowning out coherent thought. Choose, a whisper echoed, haunting and fervent. It's now or never. I had to act. I lurched toward a large tree, its gnarled roots curling around the soil like grasping hands. My instinct screamed for me to keep running, but the urgent whispers teased my ears, promising liberation if I only listened. The shard or your freedom? What did it want me to do? In a moment of reckless clarity, I looked down at the shard pulsing in my palm. This was the link that tied me to whatever horrors awaited, the key to understanding the chaos that enveloped me. But it was also the source of my impending doom. I forced my fingers to loosen, letting it drop. The sound of it hitting the ground resonated like a drum, echoing in the air. Instantly, the whispers took on a frantic tone, rising to a crescendo of panic. I felt something tug at me, fear and anger rising from the depths of the darkness, pushing back. Shadows surged toward the shard, coiling around it like serpents, while I stood frozen, my stance wavering between fear and determination. Don't. You'll unleash them. That voice from before the figure who had urged me to stay away called out desperately. But how could I turn back now? The terror chasing me was real as the shadows closing in. I had to break free, a chance to shatter the connections that tied all these lost souls. The shadows swirled violently around the shard, their murmurs rising into a chaotic roar. The creature was closing in again, and I threw caution to the wind. I dashed toward the heart of the swirling darkness, heart pounding in rhythm with the cacophony in my ears. I wasn't just running from the shadows, I was running toward answers. As I reached the shard, I fell to my knees. I reached out, grasping it firmly in both hands, and yelled into the void, "Who are you?" There was no response, only whispers echoing in uncertainty. I pressed my palms against the shard as its glow pulsed brighter, warm like sunlight, but shadowed by a cloud of dread. The air rippled and shifted, shadows twisting into shapes. I felt them pulling away from me, yet at the same time, they reached out, craving something I didn't understand. Was I uncovering long-buried truths or awakening monsters that should remain hidden? With tremors running through me, I shouted again, "I'm here to help. But you have to tell me how." The shadows writhed restlessly, their forms becoming less distinct, as the creature lurked nearby, inching ever closer. Suddenly, the world collapsed into a tumult of light and sound. The whispers became a torrent, enveloping me in a cacophony of voices, overlapping in urgency and pain. Illuminated faces emerged from the void, a haze of lost souls, their eyes filled with both fear and longing. "Tell us." They begged, their voices harmonizing into a desperate plea. "Tell us where to go." They cried out, and just like that, the light reached out of the depths of chaos, illuminating a narrow path weaving through the trees. I understood then this wasn't just my choice, it was theirs, too. "If you'll follow, I can lead the way." I called out, feeling the weight of their hope. I clutched the shard tight, channeling my fear into determination, guiding the way as I began to move, pushing through the shadows back toward the path. But my heart sank when I caught a glimpse of the creature swerving between the trees, its hollow eyes glistening with malice. "No!" I shouted, feeling its anger vibrate through the air. I had given them a direction, but would my offering be enough? The momentum shifted as whispers filled the air around me again, answering back, "We will follow you." I surged forward along the narrow path, throwing a glance back at the swirling shadows. I had no proof this would lead to safety, but the desperation of the lost souls propelled me. I stopped briefly to check behind. The shadows churned in the distance, but they halted just out of reach. My heart raced as I navigated deeper into the unknown. The path rose and fell, the glow of the moon illuminating fragments of forgotten dreams and unfulfilled promises scattered on the ground. Each step I took felt significant. I realized I wasn't just running, I was leading the lost toward hope, making a connection. "Keep going," I called, pushing myself faster. The air began to shift, growing lighter, the whispers turning from fearful wails into murmurs of encouragement. "Yes. This way." I felt a bond of purpose forming between us, the drawn shadows transforming into a flickering light, guiding the lost. Finally, I saw a break in the trees ahead, the faintest glimmer, like dawn breaking after a long night's doom. It was uncertain, but tangible. My resolve solidified. "We're almost there." I pressed on, fed by their hope pulling me forward. And then I broke through the trees into the clearing just beyond, and the shadows stilled, seeming to slump into dust, hesitant to tread upon this ground. As I stepped into the light, a wave of warmth washed over me, erasing remnants of the chaos. I turned back to look at the darkness that held them captive. For a moment, there was only the looming silence, and for the first time, it felt as if the shadows were retreating distantly rather than advancing. But just as I began to breathe in relief, that voice echoed again, ominous and clear, "You may have found the way, but there are others still lost." I stood frozen, encapsulated in the glow of dawn, now teetering on the precipice of choice again. Would I become their beacon, fighting the shadows, or would I return to my life, leaving the truth buried in darkness forever? Questions surged through me, but there were no easy answers. I felt lost, and yet I'd found a path others maybe had never left. And deep down, I knew it didn't quite end here. I needed to understand more. Would that door ever close behind me? And as I stared back into the shadows, I felt the watchful weight again. It lingered in the air like an unfinished story, waiting and wanting, suggesting that my fate was still entwined with the echoes of the past.